Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News Podcast. This episode was recorded on Tuesday the 4th of February 2025 and I'm joined here live in the NK News studio by none other than Chad O'Carroll. Chad, welcome back on the show.
Hey, good morning.
Now Chad, last year before the US presidential election, I recall you being a little bit glum about the prospects of the NK News world if the Democratic Party were to win the US presidential election. Now, Donald Trump is back in the White House. How are you feeling?
Well, I should just clarify that wasn't a political...
Yeah, it's not a political statement.
It wasn't a political statement or wish. It was just a remark from a journalist who was getting a bit bored of a beat that had slowed down significantly under Biden. And
didn't see any sign of change, right?
Yeah.
Under either a Biden or a Kamala Harris presidency.
Korea wasn't getting any love. And I guess my selfish hope as a journalist for a bit more action on the job was that Trump would return so that we would have more interesting things to write about, more unpredictability, more chaos.
Yes.
For me, those things are good. It's more material to discuss and explain.
It's a bit like the New York Times when Trump was elected the first time around. They said, bad for America, but good for newspapers.
Exactly. CNN's
one of the two.
CNN's viewership massively declined under Biden. I mean, some journalists will not like to talk about this publicly, but I think we all need to be realistic that it is going to be a more interesting news agenda.
So we're 2 and a bit weeks into the Trump second presidency. Are you seeing the chaos yet?
Yeah, not so much directly on Korea yet. There's hints that he's interested in meeting with Kim Jong-un again.
Right.
But there's been some huge developments like USAID being effectively shut down.
Yep.
And there's going to be, if we keep seeing things like that, I can see a lot of second order consequences for NGOs and humanitarian groups that have been long working on North Korea with US government money, though that might be increasingly called into question. And Yifeng, my colleague, has actually written about that for NK News, deep diving into how some of these organizations could be impacted.
Wow, okay, that's one to check out. But today I want to start off with President Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. The Secretary of State or the Department of State has traditionally been not the most hawkish on North Korea, kind of sometimes been a little bit soft, according to some critics. But Marco Rubio's come straight out of the gate calling North Korea a rogue state and saying that it's basically sowing chaos in the world and that sort of thing. So how's North Korea reacted?
Well, entirely predictably, they've described it as a example of interference in their sovereignty. They put out a statement yesterday describing it as a grave political provocation, totally contrary to the principle of international law, which regards respect for sovereignty and non-interference. See case of Ukraine in others' internal affairs. So in that statement, it was laden with discussion of how this represents US hostile policy, which is this just vague term they use time and time again to describe statements, policies that they don't like. And for the last 5 or 6 years, they've been going on and on about how the US needs to demonstrate willingness to take a different course.
Right, to change its hostile stance.
Yeah. I think that if we just read between the lines, they're looking for a gesture rather than more of the same criticism, remarks, sanctions, etc. They want to see a unilateral gesture first,
A concession, basically.
A concession, and then they'd be willing to reflect it. That's my view.
This is very reminiscent of Steve Tharp's cycle of negotiations with North Korea, that North Korea creates some hostility, some crisis, demands a concession, and the concessions are a lead into talks, which lead to further concessions. And we go back to crisis creation later on. Now, so this is a statement, the one that Chad referred to, credited to the Foreign Ministry's Institute for Disarmament and Peace.
Its think tank, one of its two think tanks,
aptly named. And it said the DPRK will continue to respond to the escalating military threats from hostile forces with boundless military strength. So it's linking it to its own military strength, missile defense systems, missiles and nuclear weapons, of course.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's not necessarily coming from the foreign ministry, from Chislin herself. It's like relegated to this state think tank. I would say that that's maybe indicative that they are not trying to completely reject what the US direction may be, but just give a strong hint to those working on the North Korea portfolio about what Pyongyang does not like.
Right, and it didn't make it to the front page of the Rodong Shinmun. As far as I know, it didn't make it to the Rodong Shinmun at all. It was just a statement released. So we're not yet seeing a lot of interest from Pyongyang in engaging with the Trump 2.0, right?
No, but they did mention in Rodong Shinmun last week about Trump's inauguration.
They did.
Which was maybe you could view that as a somewhat positive step, because it's informing the DPRK general public that the man that met with Kim Jong-un multiple times is back in the White House.
That's right, yes. But I would be expecting to see, I don't know, some editorials come out or some...
Too early. I think we've got, like, this is still way too early. Like, we don't, there's been no policy review yet. It's just, wait and see, I think.
Okay, but if Secretary Rubio's early comments are anything to go by, I'm not expecting...
They were not a fan of Pompeo for a long time, and they, even in the middle of, between summits and second summits, there was a lot of calling out of Mike Pompeo and gangster-like behavior. So they can do both at once. They can have the high-level talks and friendship with Trump and call out his underlings.
We just got to wait for that first letter between the two leaders, don't we? I mean, Valentine's Day is coming up in 10 days, so, you know.
I guess we've also got April 15th coming. There's a few dates on the calendar that I think Kim is definitely not going to make the first move. It's got to be Trump.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you on that one, yeah. Okay, now let's talk about the North Korean troops that have been deployed to help in Russia's war on Ukraine. We've got some claims by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that up to 25,000 DPRK troops could join the war.
Yeah,
that's a big up from 10 to 12,000, which was initially quoted. And he also said that some key North Korean officers were killed in a strike on a post.
Command post,
Central command post, yeah. Do we take these Ukrainian claims at face value? Because don't forget that Russia and North Korea haven't yet admitted to North Korean troops being there officially. So what do we do? I mean, you're basically left with only with the other side reporting casualties.
Yeah, it's very hard to know how many casualties there are, and I'm not an expert in how Ukraine counts these casualties, because we've also heard a lot of reports about the North Koreans taking bodies back. So I don't, that was one difference that I think was a New York Times piece described between the Russian guys at the front who just, it's chaos, someone dies, their body's left there, versus the North Koreans where there's allegedly more camaraderie. People will go out and pull that injured guy back or take the body. But so I don't know how they count these things accurately. But, 1/3 dead, 4,000 allegedly dead of 12,000.
Is that dead, or is that casualties, which includes dead and so injured that they can't fight anymore?
No, there's an estimate of a Ukrainian estimate of 4,000 have already been killed.
Gosh.
1/3 of the deployed forces.
Wow.
So, that figure doesn't seem out of the bounds of what could be expected, considering the estimates of how many Russians have died at the front lines. So, it's entirely possible. And what I've been thinking about is back home in Pyongyang, this whole, I really don't at this point understand the point of the Russians and North Koreans not acknowledging what's going on and making this effort to pretend it's not happening. It just, I don't understand, at some point it just beggars belief that you would follow a policy like that when there's so much open source data demonstrating it's not the case.
And you're missing out on potential propaganda value, aren't you?
Yeah, there's clearly some plausible deniability that both sides want. I don't really understand at this point. It's like denying gravity, but that's the reality. But, when you start to do the maths, 4,000 dead. Now, I was thinking about this. Each person, siblings, parents, girlfriends, children, extended family, we could say conservatively that every man that dies, there are 4 to 5 people in North Korea who are going to be directly affected by this, right?
Yep.
So that means already we've got 16 to 20,000 family members in North Korea whose sons or brothers are in special forces. So from relatively speaking, decent backgrounds, one would expect, or hardworking backgrounds. That's not a small number of people.
No.
And if they know or learn what their sons died for, which is this war that President Putin chose to inflict on Ukraine, it's nothing to do with North Korean state interests. They might become dissatisfied, unhappy with the leadership for sending their sons into danger. And then you increase this to 25,000 and the already existing 12,000 who are there. If all of them die, we're looking at over 100,000 family members that are going to be impacted. And it can just, you start running the math. The further this goes, the longer it goes. And then you wonder, those missing sons, who's going to compensate for the economic security they were able to provide their families? Is there going to be compensation package? Probably not.
No.
And I can just see this leading to growing dissatisfaction, which raises the question again, what is North Korea getting in return? It must be worth it for Kim Jong-un to take such a big risk to put so many people through sadness and, dissatisfaction.
We haven't yet seen what the tangible benefits are that Kim Jong-un must surely be reaping, but that may come out in due course. I mean, I know that according to economic statistics, there hasn't yet been a big blip in North Korea's economy
There's a few things we've seen, like oil, ships delivering oil to North Korea from Russia significantly increased. We've seen things like North Korea massively investing in the modernization of munitions factories, which suggests there could be finance that's been made available that would indirectly support the war in. So, but it's hard to know exactly what the quid pro quo is here.
Now, our final story for today, it's still on the same theme. The chief of Kyiv's Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council, that's Andriy Kovalenko, he said that North Korean soldiers are being taken off the battlefield to undergo retraining. To sort of the phrase used here in the story that Yifeng wrote is error correction, and that is partly as a result of not being great in countering Ukrainian drones and artillery strikes.
Yeah, we saw this report. It came after many smaller reports, regular reports, videos on social media of drones attacking individual North Koreans being gunned down in open, snowy fields wearing the dark green, completely ill-fitting camouflage colors for winter exercise, winter warfare. So it seems that maybe the losses were, if this is accurate, too acute, and the North Koreans plus Russians decided we need to up the game in terms of training. But that information package that you referenced, we did see some quite sophisticated equipment, AK-12 rifles, thermal sights, interesting.
Yeah, this equipment found on the bodies of dead North Korean soldiers in the field.
Yeah, there was a lot written about the fact that one of the North Korean soldiers had a Samsung cell phone.
Yes, I was about to pick up on that one there,
Yeah, I wouldn't zoom too much into the fact it was Samsung. I think it's just, it's just a cell phone.
It's a cell phone,
to be Samsung.
And also a printout with translations of certain Russian phrases, including "Who is the commander?" and "Raise your hands and get out of your position." Now, hang on, you're thinking, wait, why would a North Korean have that second phrase there? Who's he using that to? Certainly not to the Russian comrades, surely.
Yeah.
Maybe Russian-speaking Ukrainian soldiers. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, look, in general, I think I guess you could make all these arguments about young Ukrainians and Russians dying in this conflict as well, but as someone that focuses so long on the the country of Korea, north and south, I find it particularly, it's very sad to see like so many young men dying in a conflict that, I mean, when you read about some of the conditions that they're being, the fighting conditions they're being deployed to, it's really just in some cases like real meat grinder, like spinning the dice, live or die, Russian roulette kind of thing, but with more bullets in the cartridge. And all for what? And you see Kim Jong-un sitting in Pyongyang with children crying and in adulation at his presence. It just doesn't add up to me. And I don't think that's sustainable for his leadership to be fighting, sending the country's best into a war like this and having no clear ideological or national interest purpose in doing it.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it today. It is a sad note to finish up on, but thanks very much, Chatter Carroll. We'll see you again very soon on the NK News podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the intricate world of Korean affairs, tailored intelligence makes all the difference. Korea Risk Group's consulting services offer specialized, actionable intelligence designed to guide your Korea-related decisions. We provide bespoke consulting services that cater to your unique challenges and goals. From policy analysis to market entry strategies, we bring clarity to complexity. Transform uncertainty into opportunity and visit KoreaPro.com Solutions today. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.